Fired on my first day. Little did they know I actually owned 72% of the company. That's exactly what went through my head as I walked out of my office stunned. My name is Asher Caldwell. I had spent months preparing for this job, excited to prove myself, only to be called into a meeting and told I was fired. The reason? They said I wasn't a good fit for the company. I tried to argue, but my boss, Gretchen Mallory, didn't want to hear it. Her eyes were sharp, filled with judgment, and she didn't bother hiding her relief at getting rid of me. Dante Rivers, a coworker I barely knew, smirked like he had won some game. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. I stepped out of the building feeling humiliated. I had expected a challenge, maybe some competition, but not this. My mind raced. How could they fire me without checking facts, without even knowing who I really was? I knew then that this wasn't just about a bad first impression. This was jealousy. Dante had always wanted to rise faster than anyone else, and Gretchen had her own reasons to control the company. What they didn't know, what no one in the office knew, was that I wasn't just a new employee. I actually owned the majority of the company, 72%. Every decision, every paycheck, every move they made, I had the ultimate say over it. I went home that evening, pretending to be upset, but inside I was calm. I couldn't let them see my satisfaction. If they knew what I knew, if they realized I held all the power, it would ruin the effect. I started thinking carefully about how to handle this. Revenge wouldn't come from anger or yelling. It would come from patience and strategy. I needed to gather proof, show them their mistakes, and reclaim control in a way they would never forget. While everyone believed they had gotten away with firing me, I started reviewing company documents, contracts, and ownership records. Every piece of paper reminded me of my secret advantage. I smiled quietly knowing that the arrogant faces of Gretchen and Dante would soon meet reality. I knew exactly how to turn the situation around, but I needed to wait for the perfect moment. The perfect time would make the impact unforgettable and the embarrassment for them complete. That night, I couldn't sleep, but it wasn't worry that kept me awake. It was excitement. I had been underestimated, dismissed, and mocked, and for the first time, I realized that being underestimated was a powerful weapon. I had the opportunity to expose betrayal, reclaim control, and teach them a lesson they would never forget. This was just the beginning of a story of patience, intelligence, and quiet revenge. After that first shocking day, I spent the next few hours thinking carefully about my next steps. I knew I couldn't rush anything. Showing anger would only make them think they had gotten to me. So I decided to act calm, patient, and collected, even though inside I was seething. My goal was clear. I needed to turn the tables without revealing my hand too soon. I began reviewing every detail of the company's records, contracts, and finances. I noticed small mistakes Gretchen and Dante had made, things they thought no one would ever notice. Each error was like a small crack in their armor. I made notes quietly, building a picture of how easy it would be to expose them. I realized that I had more power than I had ever imagined. The secret ownership gave me control, and they didn't even suspect it. That week, I visited the office casually, pretending I was just a normal former employee checking on paperwork. I observed interactions, took mental notes, and studied their routines. Dante bragged to other employees about firing me, showing how arrogant and careless he was. Gretchen, confident as ever, dismissed my absence as a simple staffing decision. Neither of them realized they were being watched by someone who actually had the final say. I started planning small moves to unsettle them without revealing my identity. I made sure that employees quietly saw inconsistencies in their reports and decisions. I dropped hints about ownership structures in conversations, but never directly to them. Slowly, fear and uncertainty began creeping into their actions. The office that once seemed controlled and rigid started showing signs of unease. I also reflected on my own patience. I had learned that revenge doesn't have to be loud or destructive. The best kind comes from strategy, preparation, and timing. Every detail I collected, every small observation I made, was a step toward reclaiming what was rightfully mine. I realized that being underestimated was my greatest advantage. By the end of the week, I had mapped out the exact way I would confront them, the moment I would reveal my ownership, and how I would take control without losing my composure. The anticipation felt powerful. I knew that when the right moment came, the shock would be complete, and the lesson would be unforgettable. I left the office that day feeling quietly satisfied. For the first time since being fired, I wasn't angry or hurt. I was ready. I had a plan, I had evidence, and most importantly, I had the power they didn't even know existed. The following week, I began putting my plan into action, but carefully and quietly. I didn't rush. I wanted every move to be precise, calculated, and undeniable. I started by gathering all the legal documents proving my 72% ownership. Contracts, stock certificates, emails. Every piece of evidence was organized and ready. I knew that when the moment came, there could be no doubt about my authority. Meanwhile, I observed Gretchen and Dante more closely. They were still confident, still laughing about firing me, completely unaware that their power was an illusion. Dante boasted to other employees about how he had won on my first day. Gretchen dismissed complaints, thinking she was untouchable. The arrogance they displayed made my plan even sweeter. I also began sowing small seeds of doubt among other employees. I didn't reveal anything directly, but I asked questions about ownership, decisions, and company policies. People started noticing the inconsistencies in Gretchen and Dante's management. Without knowing why, their confidence started to crack. Every mistake they made, every misstep, I quietly noted. One afternoon, Dante made a careless error in a report, and I subtly pointed it out in a conversation with another employee. That small ripple began to spread. Gretchen, once commanding and assertive, started second-guessing herself. Her orders were questioned by others, and the tension in the office grew. I remained calm, letting everything unfold while my secret remained hidden. I reflected on the lessons I had learned. Patience, observation, and strategy were more powerful than confrontation. I didn't need to yell or threaten. I just needed to let the facts speak when the time was right. Being underestimated was my greatest advantage, and I planned to use it fully. By the end of the week, the office atmosphere had subtly shifted. Gretchen and Dante were no longer fully confident. Mistakes were amplified by whispers, questions, and curiosity from other employees. They were starting to realize that something wasn't right, but they didn't know what. And I smiled quietly, knowing that the final moment, the big reveal, was approaching. That night, I reviewed all my documents again. Everything was in order, everything ready. I could feel the tension building even before I confronted them. I realized that revenge doesn't come from rage. It comes from preparation, timing, and control. And I had all three. The next few days, I focused on observing Gretchen and Dante even more closely while continuing to prepare. I stayed calm and friendly when anyone at the office spoke to me, pretending to have accepted the firing. But inside, I was planning every detail of how to expose them. I knew that rushing or showing excitement would ruin the impact. I began quietly reviewing the company's finances, checking for irregularities that they thought no one would notice. I found small errors and oversights that they had made. Dante's arrogance led him to overlook simple calculations, and Gretchen's overconfidence caused her to approve questionable expenses. I noted each one carefully. Every small mistake was a piece of the puzzle I could later use to show the board who was really in charge. Meanwhile, I made subtle moves to test their confidence. I asked questions about ownership structures in casual conversations with other employees, letting them unknowingly spread small doubts about the leadership. I didn't reveal myself, but I watched as Gretchen and Dante grew slightly anxious, questioning themselves when they shouldn't have. The power dynamic was slowly tipping in my favor. One afternoon, Dante openly mocked me in front of a few staff members, bragging about how easily he had won by firing me on the first day. I let it slide, smiling quietly inside. Every boast he made only made the eventual reveal more satisfying. Gretchen continued to act as if she had control, but subtle cracks appeared in her behavior. I noticed hesitation, uncertainty, and small mistakes that had never happened before. By the end of the week, I had mapped out the exact moment for the big reveal. I knew when and how I would show the board the documents proving my 72% ownership. I had everything ready: evidence of their mismanagement, proof of my control, and a plan to reclaim authority completely. I also reminded myself to stay calm. No shouting, no dramatics, just the undeniable truth. That evening, as I reviewed my notes and documents, I felt a quiet satisfaction. The wait had been long, but the stage was set perfectly. Gretchen and Dante had been arrogant, careless, and completely unaware that their actions would backfire. I realized that being underestimated was not a disadvantage. It was my greatest advantage. The next morning, I arrived at the office as if nothing had changed. Gretchen and Dante were already busy, unaware that I had everything in place. I walked through the halls casually, greeting employees, letting them notice my calm confidence. Inside, I was ready. The moment to reveal the truth had come. I requested an emergency meeting with the board, claiming I had urgent company matters to discuss. Gretchen and Dante exchanged worried glances, confused that I was still involved after supposedly being fired. The board members arrived, curious, as I calmly laid out my case. I presented all the documents proving my 72% ownership. Contracts, stock records, emails. All of it was meticulously organized. The room went silent. Gretchen's confident posture faltered. Dante's smirk disappeared entirely. They finally realized that the person they had dismissed on a whim actually held the majority control of the company. Employees whispered, eyes wide, as the truth sank in. I let the moment linger, watching their shock and disbelief. I then explained the errors and mismanagement I had documented over the past weeks. Every mistake, every careless decision they had made, I presented with facts. Gretchen tried to interrupt, Dante attempted to argue, but I stayed calm, letting the evidence speak for itself. The board quickly recognized the seriousness of the situation. For the first time, Gretchen and Dante understood that their arrogance and deceit had consequences. The power dynamic had completely shifted. I had been underestimated, mocked, and humiliated, but now the tables had turned entirely. I wasn't acting out of anger. I was enforcing justice, with preparation and strategy as my weapons. By the end of the meeting, the board had formally acknowledged my authority and ownership. Gretchen and Dante were ordered to correct their mistakes and step down from their positions of control. Employees looked at me with respect and relief, understanding that the company was now in capable hands. Walking out of the meeting, I felt a mix of satisfaction and calm triumph. The first day's humiliation had transformed into complete vindication. I realized that patience, intelligence, and careful planning could overcome any betrayal or arrogance. Being underestimated had become my greatest strength, and I had used it perfectly. After reclaiming control in the meeting, I turned my attention to restructuring the company quietly but effectively. I didn't want revenge to be messy or public humiliation. I wanted fairness, stability, and lasting impact. I reviewed every department, fixing errors Dante and Gretchen had ignored or caused. Slowly, the company began running more smoothly, and employees felt the change. Dante and Gretchen were reduced to following instructions instead of giving them. Their confidence was gone, replaced with anxiety and caution. I watched as they struggled to adapt to a reality they hadn't prepared for. Every step they took now reminded them that their arrogance had limits. I didn't gloat. My satisfaction came from seeing justice take its natural course. I also made small changes to protect myself and the company in the future. I updated contracts, clarified ownership stakes, and ensured that no one could ever bypass company rules again. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about long-term security and making sure betrayal could never happen the same way twice. Throughout this process, I reflected on what had brought me here. Being fired on the first day had been humiliating, yes, but it had also forced me to see clearly who was trustworthy and who was not. It had tested my patience, my intelligence, and my self-control. I realized that the real victory wasn't just reclaiming my power. It was learning to act decisively while remaining calm. Employees slowly began to notice the changes. Productivity improved, decisions were fair, and morale increased. Some of them came to me privately, expressing relief that the company was finally being run correctly. Knowing that I had not only protected my own interests, but also helped the employees regain confidence felt deeply satisfying. Meanwhile, Dante and Gretchen were left to watch, powerless, as the company moved forward without their manipulations. Their whispered attempts at control were now ineffective. I realized that true revenge doesn't require anger. It comes from preparation, patience, and quiet authority. By the end of the week, the company was running better than ever. The employees respected me, the board trusted me, and Dante and Gretchen had learned a lesson they would never forget. I had taken a day of humiliation and turned it into months of strategic, satisfying vindication. Walking through the office that evening, I felt proud and calm. What had started as betrayal and shock had transformed into empowerment, and I knew that patience and strategy had been the keys to success. I was finally in full control, and this time, no one could take it away. By the following week, I focused on consolidating my authority while keeping everything professional. I didn't need to publicly humiliate Gretchen and Dante. They had already experienced the shock of their mistakes. Instead, I used subtle actions to show that the company was now under proper leadership. I implemented checks and balances, ensuring no one could exploit their position again. I also started rebuilding trust with the employees. They had witnessed the arrogance and negligence of Gretchen and Dante firsthand, and some were afraid of speaking up before. I encouraged open communication, listened to complaints, and rewarded good work. Slowly, the office atmosphere began to change. The fear and uncertainty that had once ruled the halls disappeared, replaced by confidence and respect. Dante, once boastful and cocky, became cautious and quiet. He tried small attempts to regain influence, but I calmly corrected every misstep. Gretchen, who had always projected authority, now hesitated in decisions, consulting me and following procedures she used to ignore. The balance of power had shifted completely. I also spent time reviewing the company's finances and policies. Every loophole that could have been exploited by corrupt management was closed. I made sure that Dante and Gretchen could no longer manipulate funds or decisions to their advantage. Their mistakes had become lessons, not only for me, but for the long-term stability of the company. Meanwhile, employees began noticing that their work environment was improving. Morale was up, decisions were fair, and communication was transparent. I realized that revenge isn't only about punishing those who wronged you. It can also be about creating a better system and environment for everyone affected. I reflected on my journey. Being fired on the first day had been humiliating, but it forced me to act with strategy, patience, and intelligence. I had learned that acting impulsively out of anger never works. Instead, quietly preparing, gathering evidence, and letting the truth reveal itself creates the strongest impact. By the end of the week, the company was fully stabilized. I had reclaimed my rightful position, ensured justice for employees, and shown that betrayal and arrogance cannot go unchecked. The first day's shock had turned into complete empowerment. I had learned that being underestimated is not a weakness. It is a powerful tool when used correctly. The next few days, I focused on making sure that the changes I had put in place were permanent. I wanted Gretchen and Dante to understand that their previous arrogance would no longer work, and that the company was now running under strong, fair leadership. I made small, deliberate adjustments in policies and procedures, closing loopholes and improving accountability. Every change reminded them silently that their control was gone. I also started empowering the employees. I held meetings to listen to their concerns, asked for suggestions, and implemented ideas that improved efficiency and morale. People who had previously been afraid to speak up were now contributing, and the atmosphere in the office changed from tense to productive. It was satisfying to see the positive impact of my actions, not just for myself, but for everyone who had been affected by Gretchen and Dante's arrogance. Gretchen and Dante were noticeably anxious. Every decision they tried to make was second-guessed, either by me or by the new checks I had put in place. Their confidence had crumbled completely, and I could see them adjusting to a reality where they no longer had any real authority. Dante's smugness was gone, replaced with nervous hesitation. Gretchen's commands became cautious, and even she had to defer to me more than once. I also continued reviewing company finances, making sure that any errors or misuse from the past were corrected. This wasn't about revenge for material gain. It was about showing that careful, patient, and prepared action always wins over arrogance and betrayal. I realized that the humiliation of being fired on the first day had been a hidden blessing. It gave me the time and motivation to observe, prepare, and act decisively. By midweek, employees began acknowledging the changes openly. They thanked me for restoring fairness, order, and respect to the workplace. The energy of the office had transformed entirely. Gretchen and Dante were left on the sidelines, powerless and aware of their mistakes. I had achieved the perfect balance. Justice without chaos, authority without unnecessary conflict. Walking through the office at the end of the day, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. I had taken a shocking betrayal, the kind that could have ruined me, and turned it into a story of empowerment, patience, and strategic triumph. I realized that being underestimated is one of the strongest advantages a person can have. The first day's humiliation had transformed into long-term control, and I had done it with calm intelligence and careful planning. By the next week, I knew it was time to fully secure my position and ensure that Gretchen and Dante could never undermine me again. I called another board meeting, this time to finalize changes in management and ownership structure. I presented updates to policies, corrected financial discrepancies, and clarified decision-making processes. Everything was documented, transparent, and undeniable. Gretchen and Dante arrived, still trying to maintain composure, but I could see the anxiety in their eyes. They had realized by now that the tables had completely turned. Every small mistake they had made before, every arrogant decision, had been quietly documented. I laid it all out calmly, showing the board exactly how mismanagement had affected the company and how I was now restoring order. Employees and board members alike watched in awe as the once powerful duo squirmed under the weight of their own errors. Dante tried to argue, and Gretchen attempted to justify her actions, but the documents and facts spoke louder than their words. The evidence was overwhelming, and it left them powerless. I made sure the corrections were permanent. Gretchen and Dante were formally reprimanded, demoted, and required to follow strict oversight. Their influence was effectively neutralized, and the company could operate fairly without fear of manipulation. Employees felt reassured and grateful, knowing that the office was finally run by someone who valued fairness and integrity. Throughout the process, I stayed calm and composed. I realized that revenge doesn't require rage. It requires preparation, strategy, and patience. By letting them underestimate me, I was able to reclaim control in the most powerful way possible. Their arrogance had been their downfall. After the meeting, I walked through the office with a quiet sense of triumph. The company was now fully in my hands, operating efficiently and ethically. Gretchen and Dante had learned their lesson, and the employees had regained confidence and trust. The first day's humiliation had been transformed into a long-term victory. I also reflected on how much I had grown. Being fired on my first day had felt like the worst betrayal, but it had pushed me to think strategically and act decisively. I had learned that true power isn't about force or anger. It's about patience, planning, and letting the truth reveal itself at the perfect moment. After everything was settled, I finally felt the full weight of what had happened and what I had accomplished. Being fired on the first day had been humiliating and shocking, but it had turned into the ultimate lesson in patience, strategy, and self-empowerment. My first day's betrayal had become a stepping stone to reclaiming control, not just over the company, but over my own confidence and destiny. Gretchen and Dante had learned their lesson, and the employees now respected the rules, the structure, and my leadership. The office that once felt tense and chaotic had transformed into a place of trust, fairness, and efficiency. I realized that revenge doesn't have to be loud or dramatic. It can be quiet, precise, and lasting. The satisfaction I felt wasn't from seeing them humiliated, but from restoring balance and justice in the workplace. Looking back, I understood the true power of being underestimated. Everyone had assumed I was powerless, that firing me would remove me as a threat. That misjudgment gave me the advantage. I had been able to observe, prepare, and strike at the perfect moment, turning what seemed like weakness into my greatest strength. I also reflected on what I had learned about people. Arrogance, jealousy, and greed can make people blind to the truth, but calm intelligence and patience allow you to turn betrayal into opportunity. The experience taught me not just about business, but about life. The ones who underestimate you often do the most damage to themselves. As I walked through the office, seeing employees working happily and efficiently, I felt a quiet pride. I had reclaimed authority, corrected injustices, and ensured that no one could take advantage of me or others again. Every mistake, every betrayal, every small humiliating moment on that first day had led to this moment of empowerment and control. Finally, I realized that the first day's shock, which had seemed like the worst thing that could happen, had actually been a blessing in disguise. It pushed me to think strategically, act decisively, and become stronger than I ever imagined. What started as betrayal and humiliation had transformed into a story of triumph, empowerment, and life lessons I would carry forever. This was my journey, from being fired on day one, to revealing my ownership, to reclaiming control and teaching lessons about arrogance, patience, and strategy. It showed me that even in moments of betrayal, you can rise stronger, smarter, and unstoppable.